The devastation from Helene spread across the South.
Yes, North Carolina was hit with flooding it hasn't seen in a century. Some calling it biblical.
Asheville, North Carolina, that town is basically cut off from the rest of the state right now. Most of the city is totally submerged in water. The water levels in some spots are as high as street signs.
The ground was so saturated, it just couldn't hold any more water.
We are still in a crisis mode. We are still in recovery.
Well, I never thought we'd be coming to you talking about a hurricane that devastated our little mountain town over 300 miles from the nearest ocean.
The three of us are really just coming up for air and have the energy and resources to even be making this video. We've been spending all our efforts in our community, with our families, and with our children.
We started this platform as a way to share about our beautiful community with viewers like you, and that is still our mission. Today's video will be about recovery efforts, community, and a little history behind storms that have happened before. While we have always felt safe and protected by our beautiful mountains, the intense rainfall coming down multiple elevation changes caused unprecedented momentum and significant damages to the communities in the valleys below. Here are some of the key events in this timeline of what happened with the impact of Hurricane Helene in Asheville. Okay, we started September 26th. Hurricane Helene made landfall on the Gulf Coast as a Category 4 storm, and the rains at that point had already started in western North Carolina. By the next day, Asheville had experienced record-breaking rainfall with over 9 inches of rain in 2 days. The Shenandoah River was overflowing. Asheville woke up with no power, no water, and no cell service. We felt literally cut off from the rest of the world. By the 28th, the French Broad River had crested at 24 feet, breaking previous records. In the coming days, we had landslides, losing sections of I-26 and I-40, causing major roadways to close around our area. Asheville is largely isolated at this point. By the 30th, emergency responders had rescued over 100 people in the Lake Lure and Chimney Rock areas. Utility losses were widespread. Initially, over 2 million Duke Energy customers were without power. Within a week, 90% of the grid in Asheville had been restored, but many repairs took significantly longer given the challenging terrain and difficult access into mountain areas. Helene's floodwaters destroyed power poles and electric lines and washed away grid infrastructure. 21 days post-storm, 636 Buncombe County residents were still without power. So there have been significant efforts to get people back up and running with their power and their water. It's been really amazing to see so many responders coming from all over. I know that a big portion of the power that was restored in the Weaverville area where I live was done by linemen from Quebec, Canada. So literally this has been such an amazing effort from people all over. It was interesting on the mountain where I live in Weaverville to see the grid returning. So those first few days after the storm at night, the valley was totally dark. And as power started being restored, we started seeing patches of light coming back on across the valley. And it wasn't just restoring electricity, it was restoring hope and restoring comfort to the people in our community. The same has been true for the city's water infrastructure. 80% of Asheville is served by the North Fork Water Reservoir, and Helene's floodwaters damaged water lines and pump stations, including a 3-foot main line of the North Fork Reservoir. Today, as we film this video, we're 22 days post-storm, and while most of Asheville is up and running with electricity and non-potable water running in its pipes, there are still parts of the surrounding area that are without running water. While responders have come from near and far to help get our main utilities up and running, the same has been true for people in the local communities. We've got boots on the ground and people working really hard to get this mess cleaned up and get life in Asheville back on track.
So we're here in my neighborhood of East-West Asheville. The French Broad River is just behind me, and when the floodwaters crested, my neighbor Micah was able to get on his paddleboard. He came out here to this telephone pole, marked the high water line, and he was also able to help our neighbors safely get out of their homes. They never expected the water to breach their home, and they were caught inside, and he was able to help them get out safely.
It's so amazing. There are so many stories like that of just people living in communities, neighborhoods, getting out there and helping folks to safety. It's really also amazing, you guys. You're seeing so much footage in the media right now of all of the devastation in and around Asheville. And while that is all very real and very heavy and a lot to deal with, there are also many areas of our community that visually you cannot tell that a hurricane ever happened.
So what Trinity Baptist Church has done here is an amazing example of what's happening all over the city, the county, and counties beyond. So this was an event that not only affected Asheville, we're focusing on Asheville right now because this is where I live, this is where my team lives, and this is where our firm is. But right now we're seeing the ripple effects all through the communities around Western North Carolina, and there are places like this set up in neighborhoods and counties all over. So I'm here with Winston, the pastor at Trinity Baptist Church. And Winston, can you tell us, did the Trinity Task Force exist before Hurricane Helene?
No, the task force itself did not exist. It was something that's in our hearts, obviously, to help our community and our church. There's a legacy here of helping when it's needed. But the organized task force, no, it was born just a few days after the storm. And when we started to see the need, you began to get news from Swannanoa and how devastated Swannanoa was. And then you heard about Biltmore Village, and it kept growing. Barnardsville, Girton, Garin Creek, so many places were hit. And we began to realize just how devastated so many different communities were. So we knew this was more than one entity or one church or one organization could handle. And so our church came together. My church staff became logistics managers and procurement officers for very specific items. And really the church just came together in an incredible way. And churches from all over the Southeast have partnered with us with money and equipment, supplies. And we've been able to help 4 different counties from right here. We drilled 2 wells here on our property, and we have a well up here at the top that's feeding our kitchen and our Family Life Center, and a second well here that's behind us that is feeding the community whatever water need they have. It's clean water. We got it certified and tested, and thousands of people have been on this campus getting help. And we're thankful for that. It's our opportunity to step up to the plate. And I'm thankful for people like you who are telling the story. It's so important. There's so much tragedy, heartache, heartbreak.
Yeah.
It's been a long few weeks.
It has been a long few weeks.
But it's so good to run into smiling faces like you. They're trying to tell the story of hope, and that there's still community in Western North Carolina. And we appreciate you. Apologize for getting emotional. It's been an emotional few days.
It's been an emotional few weeks.
Yeah, it has been. But there's still hope, and there's still people who are helping each other without any strings attached. And that's an incredible truth that has to be told here in Western North Carolina. But it's great to meet you and your team.
Yeah, likewise. And thank you for being here. All right, so we're inside Trinity Baptist Church here, and they've got everything set up behind me. Each room is kind of a different section. So we've got cleaning supplies, we've got clothes, we've got food, water, everything is set up so people can come in and do their shopping, take it home for themselves, or take it into their communities. Let's go take a look. So do you all live in Asheville? Is this home?
I grew up here,
Yeah, I live in the River Arts District.
Yeah. And how are you doing right now?
We were spared. We were so fortunate. And so we're doing okay. Our heart's really hurting though for all of our neighbors and all the area businesses that were impacted. But personally, we're good.
Yeah, good.
Thank you for being here.
What part of town do you live in?
I live in Woodfin.
Woodfin.
Okay.
Yeah. So water is flowing. You're doing okay?
We got our water flowing.
Woo!
Very grateful.
So we're here in West Asheville, and World Central Kitchen is set up providing hot meals for people in need. And Hannah has been heading up this organization. Can you tell me a little bit about World Central Kitchen?
So World Central Kitchen is a disaster relief organization that helps people in need that have been going through natural disasters. And we're based out of DC, and we go anywhere that we're needed.
Yeah, and I can attest, I've had this food. It is delicious. It was amazing to be able to get a hot meal, a smiling face, a bottle of water, and just feel our community come together. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Mary Lynn. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
For me personally, I like to understand the why, the how, and the connections to the past. This isn't the first time we've been hit by a record-setting weather event caused by tropical storms and hurricanes, but it was, however, the worst we've seen in our area. As someone who grew up in Asheville, it's amazing how little to no recollection I have of hearing about the Great Flood of 1916, which is one that our current flooding is being compared to. In 1916, the Asheville area experienced what was called the flood of all floods. The Blue Ridge Mountains saw more rain than anyone anywhere had ever seen in a 24-hour period. That is, anyone anywhere had ever seen. This is according to the National Weather Bureau. At a record-setting 22 inches of rainfall that was dumped in a 24-hour period, it was the fallout of 2 converging tropical storms and took the area by surprise. Next up, we're going to talk about the storm in 2004. I do remember this one. The flooding was caused by Tropical Depression Francis, which dropped more than 17 inches in the area, flooded the areas near rivers like Biltmore Village, and damaged one of the main water lines near the North Fork Reservoir. Just 9 days after Francis, when the town's lower residents and sections were just beginning to dry out, Hurricane Ivan hit and dropped another 10 to 17 inches of rainfall in about 24 hours. Needless to say, it was devastating to the area, took years to recover, but Asheville built back, grew, changed, and evolved. Next up, we have our current situation where Hurricane Helene and the preceding stalled band of showers dropped 12 to 30 inches of rainfall within a 72-hour period, which created flooding that surpassed records set just over a century ago. The monstrous storm that caused biblical devastation was the result of what can only be called a worst-case scenario. Torrential rainfall from the remnants of Hurricane Helene capped off a 3-day extreme, unrelenting precipitation event in the area. Dozens of weather stations recorded their wettest 3-day period on record. For some reference, 14 inches of rain is equal to nearly 3 months of precipitation. 300 miles of tropical storm-force winds only amplified the situation, taking trees down that were already vulnerable to falling since the ground they were in was sopping wet. Here you can see the differences in flooding that occurred across the 3 major floods in the western North Carolina area, progressively getting worse as time goes on. In the center of the graph, you can see facts that are true for all 3 floods. Each of them had 2 back-to-back weather systems that created the damage. They were all deadly and costly. They all have led to landslides. They all created widespread utility outages, and they were all record-setting. If you want to pause on this screen, you can see how each of them compared to each other, and I think it is very interesting to understand how the systems have gotten progressively worse throughout time. The flood of 1916 was called the flood of all floods, but now that has been replaced, and now Helene in 2024 has taken the record. I'm going to call this the flood of all floods in the area. And now for the why. When the mountains are hit with so much water all at once, they can cause dangerous flash flooding. The ground becomes saturated, the water table rises, and there is literally nowhere for the water to go but down the steep mountains and towards the path of least resistance, which rapidly funnels water into the streams and rivers. What we can do is learn from these events, rebuild our utilities to withstand intensifying weather patterns, rebuild our homes and businesses further away from the rivers and waterways to allow them the space to expand if necessary. Floods like this don't happen often, but when the next major weather event finds itself trapped in our beautiful valley in the land of the sky, we will be more prepared.
So we're here at a pop-up market for the River Arts District artists. So many studios and creative event spaces were decimated in the flood, and people are popping up all over town to support the artists coming out. There's hundreds and hundreds of people here today, and it's just a beautiful way to see how the community is coming together and supporting the arts in Asheville.
Asheville is not just a place that had a hurricane or the latest spectacle on national news. We're community, we're friends, we're family,
we're artists,
we're neighbors,
we're teachers, we're first responders.
And we're all helping each other out. And right now, Asheville and Western North Carolina needs your help. The description below has a list of organizations that are open to accepting donations, and please set a reminder in your phone for 3, 6, and 12 months from now. We're going to need help for a long time. The people of this community and of this region are strong, and together we will come back.
And we'll thrive again. Thank you for tuning in. Life in Asheville will be back with more updates and information soon.
We love you.